All right, in this video, we're gonna cover how to set up your Kestrel. So if you just got a Kestrel, this video's for you. All right, the first thing you're gonna wanna do is download the Kestrel app in your phone. You'll see that it's got some pretty negative reviews, but that's because people download it that don't have a Kestrel and it doesn't work for anything. So don't let the review scare you. It's a really good app. So it's gonna look like this. It's got the little Kestrel bird and it's black with the white Kestrel bird in it. So go ahead and download that. And when it comes up, it'll say Kestrel Link Ballistics. The first thing we have to do is establish a gun profile. So if you just bought a Kestrel, we need to be setting this system up for that one gun, and then we can set up multiple profiles for multiple guns. But just remember that each gun that we do, you have to set up a new profile because all the information that we put into this is gonna work for that one specific application. The first thing we're gonna do is connect our device. Now, if you just bought your Kestrel, it's probably got a bunch of settings that are different than what they should be, and that's fine. We're gonna get to all that. But you're gonna need to hit this button up here on the top left. Imagine that as your menu button, and it's also kind of like a back button. So if you hit the menu button and then you go down to Bluetooth and then you hit enter, you'll see that it says PC mobile and then privacy pin off. If you have the privacy pin on, your pin number is right below that. So what we'll do is make sure that our phone has Bluetooth turned on, and then we'll hit connect device. Now, I've never connected this Kestrel to this phone before, and you'll notice that it comes right up, Elite X, and then the number beside it is the serial number. This is incredibly important if you're gonna be at a match. You don't wanna connect to somebody else's Kestrel by accident, so all you're gonna do is just look on the back of the Kestrel. The serial number is right there, and you'll see it ends in 442, and then this one also ends in 442. Like I said, if we're not sure, always flip that Kestrel over and look at the serial number to make sure. So we'll go ahead and click that, and it's gonna start to connect. So this might take a minute, especially if you've never connected it before, but it'll probably prompt you that you have new firmware available, and there's another prompt that'll say like custom drag models available. If you're gonna be using this within the next few minutes, I never recommend updating the firmware. That's something that you should always do when you have plenty of time and you don't need to use the Kestrel right now. So for right now, when it comes up and says new firmware available, we're gonna hit cancel. And then it's probably gonna give us a notification that there's custom drag models available. Right here where it says update available, standard bullet library, we're gonna hit cancel. You'll notice that we have the Kestrel is connected. So what we're gonna do is go into gun profile management. Now, I already have a bunch of guns in my app, but you'll have basically just like the basic gun that it comes with. What you're gonna wanna do is hit the plus button at the top. That's gonna take you into your setup screen. Now, you can name it anything you want. So at the top, we can name it, say we're shooting a 6mm and we're shooting a 105 hybrid. You can name it anything. I like naming it what bullet it is and what bore it is, just so that I know if I named it 6mm Creedmoor, well, there could be 6 different bullets that I shoot out of a 6mm Creedmoor. So by naming it the caliber and the bullet that I'm using, that'll make sure that when I go to click on it, I'm clicking on the correct profile. Next, when you go down, there's a notes section. You can put in notes about your rifle. There's an image that you can put in. All that stuff is just fancy stuff that you don't have to do. The next one down says bullet data. You're gonna wanna select that. And then remember, we're shooting a 6mm with a 105 hybrid bullet. So we're gonna go down and we're gonna find 243 6mm. We're gonna click on that. And then Berger is the company that makes the projectile. So even if you're using factory ammo like Federal that's loaded with a 105 Berger, then you're gonna wanna use whatever the projectile that your ammunition is loaded with. So if you're hand loading, you'll definitely know what that is because you had to buy those bullets to put in the cartridges. But if you're buying factory ammo, always look for the actual projectile that the ammunition manufacturer is loading that ammo with, because like Federal loads Sierra bullets, burger bullets, Barnes bullets. So you could have any projectile that they offer, and you just need to make sure that you're using the correct one. So as we go into it, we said we're shooting a Burger 105 hybrid. So as we go down, you'll see one thing that trips people up is there's a Burger 105 VLD as well as a 105 Burger hybrid. So if we were to click on the Burger 105 hunting VLD, we would have the wrong data because we're using a 105 Burger hybrid target. So we're going to click on that. And then it's going to give you the option to use a G1, G7, or the AB custom curve. If you're using a 5700 Elite or 5700X, then you're going to get the option for the AB custom curve. If you have a Sportsman, then it's not going to have the AB custom curve option, but I typically use G7. Now we'll get into which one you should pick later, but usually if you're using a G7 or an AB custom curve, either one's going to work well for you. I personally usually use a G7. So we'll click on that. And what that's going to do is go ahead and populate some of this data for you. Because they already have this information, it's in their system, so they know what the diameter of the bullet is, what the weight of the bullet is, what the ballistic coefficient that they've tested it at. Now keep in mind that ballistic coefficient can be a little different depending on your rifle, so we'll get into that later, but we're going to start with the one they give us. Now, as we go down, when you get to gun data, this is all information that you have to put in that you're going to have to find out that they don't know. So there's muzzle velocity, zero range, bore height, zero offset, and twist rate. Now, how do we get the muzzle velocity? We're going to use a chronograph. So if you don't have one, get up with some guys in your area, borrow one, go to the range, whatever you have to do to borrow one or buy one. We recommend the Garmin. The Garmin works the best and it just gives you good solid data, very easy to use, and it gives you very accurate information. Let's say we shoot our 10 round string, we get an average velocity of 2820. Make sure that's in feet per second. Next, we're gonna go down and we're zeroing our rifle at 100 yards. Now, the reason this always comes up at 109 yards is that's the equivalent of 100 meters. So if you're using yards, make sure to put in 100 yards and there's the Y beside it. Next, we need bore height. So you're gonna need to measure the height of your scope over your barrel. So we want the center of the optic to the center of the barrel. We're gonna have a video out about that soon. There's some other videos out there on YouTube, but just make sure that we're actually measuring that and not guessing. To give you an idea, to make sure you're somewhere in the ballpark, most PRS rifles are somewhere between 2.2 and 2.5 inches. If your sight is really low, maybe it's closer to 2. If it's, really high on an extra high mount, maybe it's closer to that 2.5. But it should not be 3 and it should not be 1. So we have a little window there. Okay, so most of my sight heights are set at 2.4 and I'm running an extra high ring on my rifles. So that gives you an idea of, what I'm using. Yours will be different, so don't just take my data and use it. So next we've got zero height and zero offset. Now, typically this is always gonna be 0. The only time this would not be 0 is if you have a difference, a deviation from your 0 being dead center. So let's say that you zeroed the rifle with your hunting bullets and you know what the offset is to your target bullets, then you can put that offset in here and the Kestrel will automatically account for it. I don't ever use this because inevitably I'm gonna end up forgetting that I did it in the setup. Now, if I get to a match and my 0 is a little bit off, I might shift the 0 in the Kestrel itself, but as far as on the phone, when I'm inputting it, I always just leave it at 0 and go from there. The last thing that we're gonna do here is twist rate. Twist rate is how many inches it takes to get one complete revolution of the bullet due to the twist rate or the spin of the rifling. So when you're looking at what is your twist rate, the manufacturer should tell you. If you have a factory rifle, it should say like 1 in 8, or a lot of times it's denoted as either 1:8 or 1/8. So that's 1 turn for every 8 inches. If you have a custom barrel, when you ordered that barrel, that manufacturer of the barrel should tell you what the twist rate is so that you can properly put this in. So when we go to put it in, just make sure that we're using the actual twist of the barrel. And if you have any questions, consult who made it. And if you really have to, you can use a cleaning rod with a tight fitting jag and you can mark it, and I'm sure you can find a video about how to do that. Most of the time it's not needed because we're going to be told. Mine is a 7.5 twist. Okay, next thing down is elevation units and windage units. If you're using mils, this thing comes set at mils already. If you're using MOA, you're just going to tap on it and it's going to change over to MOA. Most of the time, those are the only two that are needed, unless you have some weird scope that's like shooter MOA or clicks per inch or something weird, you're going to be just fine. So you'll see that all of mine are set up with mil, but that's not something you choose. You choose that based on your optic. So whatever your optic is set in, that's what you need to pick. So if your optic is set up in MOA, pick MOA. If your optic is set up in mil radian, make sure to click mils. All right, and then the last thing that you could do is a muzzle velocity temp chart, but I will tell you, I don't ever use it because inevitably, by the time, if you put some data in here, it's gonna come back and bite you unless you're really staying on top of it. So what this could do would be if you put in like 60 degrees Fahrenheit, my gun was going 2820. At 30 degrees, it was going 2800. At 100 degrees, it was going 2840. And then it would automatically interpolate that data. What I've seen many people have problems with is they'll put this info in there, they'll forget about it, then they'll change the barrel or the powder or their load, and then next thing you know, we come back around and it ends up biting them like 6 months later. So I always just leave those all as zeros. Now, all we got to do then is hit save, and you'll see at the very top of the screen, whatever profile we just made is now at the top. So it says 6mm 105 hybrid, and we're ready to go. So we've got our Kestrel fired back up here, and remember this button at the top left is like a back button as well as a menu button. So I just clicked that a couple times to get back to the main screen. So how do we get the information from the phone to the Kestrel? Well, that's a great question. On an Android device, there's a little bit of different way to do it. You have to select it. On the Apple device here, all we have to do is click select and then click on the one that we want to send. And then down at the bottom, you'll see send profiles is highlighted. If we click on that, we're going to get a notification that says, do you want to overwrite, append, or cancel? If this is the very first time you're doing this, I would hit overwrite so that it takes that factory setting out of it. If you're adding to, that's what append means. So obviously I don't want to delete everything in my Kestrel, so I'm going to go ahead and hit append. As it sends it over, you should see your data change here, and then if we go down a couple, you'll see gun has changed to 6mm 105 hybrid. So in this first video, this is how you put in all the data in your phone app and then transfer it over to the Kestrel. Next, we're going to get into how do we use the Kestrel and how do we update it for the environment we're in.